Hey guys, welcome to another Double Tap on YouTube. I am Stephen Scott.
And I'm Shaun Preece. Hello.
Great to be back with you again, Sean, because today we're talking about our favourite topic, Android. We love Android, don't we? It's our favourite. Of all the operating systems, it's my number one.
No one was expecting that, were they? Android.
That was a surprise.
I know. But to be serious for a second, and let's be serious, Stephen. We are only joking most of the time.
How dare you? I'm being 100%. I've told you a million times. I don't exaggerate.
Android has matured so much over the years, and it's a perfectly fine platform, Stephen
You're
Scott.
making it worse. You're making it worse.
I just want to be sure when we're coming in, because people may be hearing this video for the first time and saying, "Oh, they hate Android." That isn't the case.
No one hates anything here.
Yeah, well, that's not the way you put it across sometimes. But I'm just saying, we are iPhone users, right? That's how we started. That's our main phone. That's our daily driver. So I'm always a little bit cautious when I'm talking about Android because I don't use it every day.
Yeah. And we're not going to get into too much detail here. I mean, it is Double Tap, so detail. It's not in our middle name. But what I will say is, it's important to pick up on some of the trends, the new tech that's coming out inside the latest build of Android 15. So Beta 1 was announced just recently. And it's always interesting to dive into these things because like iOS, when the new OS is announced and you start to get these betas through, everyone's starting to pour through them to find all the new features. And you can search online, and what you'll find with the mainstream tech press are tons and tons of new features, cool things that are in Android. And look, I love to kid on the Android people, as you well know. But the truth is, I'm often quite jealous of the amount of toys they get to play with over an Android. And I honestly, I've said this before, if I had started out today with a smartphone, I'd probably pick Android because I think I'd get so much more out of it. And, like you were saying, TalkBack has matured as a screen reader to be at a level where, to me is on a par. I mean, if you're a regular seasoned iPhone user, you will know that it's not perfect. It has a lot of issues. It has a lot of challenges. We hear about that probably more because there are so many people who use iPhone who are blind. Right, so be very clear in this. And again, to be even more clear, in the west of the world, US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, countries where easier access to these devices and perhaps more affordable access to those devices are, that is where you'll find blind people using them. Now, I'm sure in other countries around the world, you'll see Android use higher. And that's why it's so important that Android is on a par. So, we fight for the Google accessibility to be on that par, and it is now. I think it is. I certainly think it is. But Android 15 is interesting because there's two features that you probably won't hear from the mainstream press. Goodness, I'm turning into one of those people saying things like, the mainstream media aren't reporting on. But it's true. They don't report on accessibility issues enough. And if they do, it's cursory because, they don't have people who are disabled working in the team to be able to report on it in any meaningful way other than just say, oh, by the way, there's this thing. So we're going to dive into two features in particular today, just to mention to you, because again, it's important to say this is beta. So Android 15 Beta 1 is out. Like all betas, things can change, things can adapt. So I'm just telling you the headlines at the moment, and then we'll dive in more with some of the Android experts we're lining up for you on this topic in the coming weeks and months here on Double Tap. I want to mention fingerprint unlock first off. Because when I got my Google Pixel 8 phone, one of the things that I thought to myself was, when setting up the phone, it was actually quite easy to set up the fingerprint unlock. The fingerprint sensor on the Google Pixel 8, and it's the same across a number of Android devices, again, super jealous. The fingerprint sensor is under the screen. So it's not a button on the side. It's not something tactile. So that can be a bit of a challenge, but especially when you're trying to log back into your device after you've set it up. Strangely, one of the things that was missing from the Google Android experience was once you'd set up the fingerprint unlock, which did give you audio guidance to make sure you were putting your finger in the right place on the screen, once you were set up, you weren't getting that again. So what actually happens is when you go to put your finger on the screen, a very bright light would emerge from the screen. And you could almost, put your finger over the light. You're almost covering the light. That was giving you the way of knowing that you had unlocked your phone. But if you couldn't see the light,
futuristic. That sounds so cool.
It sounds amazing. Unless you can't see it, right?
Yes. Well, it's exactly the point. And it seems so strange that you'd have that voice guidance during setup, but not during when you're actually trying to unlock it. I mean, the capability is actually there to guide your thumb to the right position, yet for some reason it's not used. It seems so strange to me.
So the good news is in this new Android 15 beta, this first edition anyway, it has shown itself up and it is now something you can do. When you are going back into your phone and, once you've gone through the setup process, you're using your phone every day, you can now more easily go and find that sensor under the screen, and it will give you an audio guidance to it. Let's have a listen to this. This was a video posted by 9to5 Google. They have posted this, demonstrating how this will work.
Move right, 14:25 Monday the 15th of April. Move left, fingerprint sensor, window, 40 device unlocked, home, Monday the 15th of April.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to work perfectly well. I mean, and that's all you need, something as easy as that, because as you said, on-screen or under-screen fingerprint sensors are just so cool. I mean, from a technology point of view, and they seem to work perfectly well as well. The only limitation being for us is how do you locate it? There's no tactile marking on there, obviously, like there is for the fingerprint scanner on the back of a device or on the power button or wherever it may be. So you do need this, and it's good to see that they're finally implementing this now.
Yeah, and again, if you want to go back to the iPhone comparison, that's a trade-off you have to make with an iPhone, because you don't get Touch ID pretty much at all anymore unless you buy one of the older iPhone SEs, and it's unlikely, I would imagine, that there's going to be Touch ID in any future devices. What I like about Android is you have the choice. You've got the pin entry. I don't know if do you still get that squiggle thing you used to do? You can make a shape.
I think
pattern
so.
shape. That's another thing, which again, what's cool about that to me is, I have a thing, I've realized this over the years, I have this thing called dyscalculia, which basically, it doesn't mean I sleep in a coffin every night. What it basically means is I struggle with numbers. And
well done.
I thank you. I was waiting for validation on that.
Yeah.
But I do you shouldn't laugh at your own. It's really bad when you laugh at your own material, right? Especially when
I felt
it's that
like
bad.
You were waiting though, that you wouldn't continue.
I know.
Until...
I kind of felt I had to get that laugh out, and then we could move on. But yeah, so it's a struggle with numbers, and for anybody who might struggle with numbers, using the pin might not work so well, and then maybe there's another reason why they might not want to use Touch ID or the Face ID. But the point is, with Android, you get all the options, you get lots of ways to log in, and I think that's actually pretty cool. That's something Apple could really do with considering. I do think Touch ID will return to the iPhone, and this is how it will return. But for whatever reason, they've decided not to go down this route. Because look, one of the reasons that it was touted that Touch ID was not in the underscreen of an iPhone was because they couldn't make it secure. But Google have got around this, haven't they? It is secure now.
Well, I mean, what does that mean? They can't make it secure. I mean, it either reads your fingerprint or it doesn't it? I mean, what's the problem there? I don't know. I mean, it's all like magic to me anyway, how they get it to work at all. So, I'm pretty sure it'll turn up eventually.
I remember the early days of iPhones, you could pretty much print out a picture of someone, or I could draw your face, hold it up to your phone, and it would work out it was you. So I mean, things have moved on, thank goodness. I think we should try that one day for a video. That'd be quite cool. The thing is, I have to remember what your face is like. I'm almost sensing a little bit of a Lionel Richie song.
You're not touching
here.
My face.
I'll need to feel you. I'm reaching out. Okay, let's talk about Braille. Speaking of touching, let's talk about Braille and some of the new features. So one particular area of Braille which has been a bit challenging for Android users is being able to use Bluetooth with their devices and getting information onto their Braille device. In particular, HumanWare had a bit of a block on this. It was all to do with a new driver that had been built by Google, Microsoft, and Apple. They'd worked together on this new Braille driver, which essentially allowed for what's called HID communication over Bluetooth. So human interface device, the same way that, when you plug a keyboard in via USB, the device will just pick up that it's a keyboard and it'll just say, okay, I'm a keyboard and this is it. But in order to get the display information back to the device, you needed to use this particular protocol, which Google had implemented, which Apple had implemented, which Microsoft had implemented into their PCs. But for whatever reason, there was a block between Google and certain Braille displays to be able to do this. And it's something we challenged Google on to say, what are you going to do here? How are you going to fix this? And it seems they have fixed this problem. Now, to get more detail on this, we brought in a Braille expert. Matthew Horspool is from the Braillists Foundation, and he told us on a recent Double Tap what these changes mean for users.
Essentially, there's been a bit of a tug of war, really, between Humanware and Google. And this is quite well documented. Humanware have done several interviews in which they've said, well, actually, when we released our Mantis Braille display and our Brailliant Braille displays, we made a commitment to use the new HID, Human Interface Device protocol, and all of the manufacturers made a commitment to use that as well, and then the manufacturers went back on their commitments, and that's Humanware's position on it. And so HID Braille is kind of a new way of doing Braille, where instead of having to write a separate driver for every single Braille display on the market, if the Braille display supports HID, then in theory, the device can just use a generic Braille driver, and any Braille display that supports HID will work with that generic Braille driver. And it's that generic Braille driver that Android up until now has been missing. And Humanware haven't wanted to retrofit support for their Braille displays to Android. They've wanted Android to catch up and introduce the generic driver. And that's what they've done in this release. So it really is actually quite a big deal.
So this tug of war that seems to have taken place, thankfully that war is now over, which is good. And It means that we'll be able to utilize all of these Braille displays. Now, there were certain displays like the Focus lineup from Vespero. They did work. They were fine. It was all to do with the driver inside the device, in particular the Google devices, that just wasn't present at that point. That will now be rectified. Now, again, will be rectified because this is a beta. So this software is not out yet, but this capability is coming to Android 15. So that is great news. And as Matthew says, it's a big deal.
Oh, yes. I mean, this is going to make a lot of people very happy. And Google have come under so much fire about this for the longest time. And it's took its time to be fixed. But I got to say, this isn't just on Google. As was mentioned there, this is Humanware as well. And this is not the first time we've seen customers sort of come off worse because of a tug of war between two companies, right? No company wanted to, change their mind on it or retrofit anything. And no, you change it. No, you change it. And at the end of the day, it's us as end users who suffer. But I mean, by the by, it's great to see that finally that has been overcome. And it should mean that, anyone with a Braille display should have a much easier time getting it to work with their device, no matter what it is.
And of course, in the meantime, you can also plug in your device directly. So if it's an Android phone, you can plug it in via USB-C cable. So, you do have a method of connecting to your device, but, a lot of people want to do it over Bluetooth, which makes total sense.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Now, or when Android 15 is released, we will have that capability. So those are two features inside Android 15. We'll follow this story with interest. We're going to get a lot more conversation on this in the coming months. But I just thought I'd bring it up ahead of the announcements because, of course, we've got Google I.O. coming up in May.
Yes.
So we'll be interested to see if there's any new accessibility features coming out this year. Global Accessibility Awareness Day coming up in May as well. It's usually a time we hear about something new, something exciting.
Yep.
So we will watch with interest and we'll bring you all the latest when we get back from our holidays. More on that in the next video because we are taking a little bit of a break here on Double Tap on YouTube, but we'll tell you about that in the next video. Thank you, though, for sticking around today, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Bye-bye.